At E3 in June 2013, Sony steps on stage and does something so beautifully petty and surgically targeted that it wins them an entire console generation before PS4 even ships. They made a 21-second video saying, when you buy a PlayStation game, you own it. You can lend it. You can sell it. You can give it away. Jack Tretton stood on that stage and promised gamers, to their faces, that Sony had never restrict their right to do what they want with games they buy. After Microsoft had just tried to lock down used games on Xbox One and Sony took absolute piss out of them for it, it worked. It was one of the most effective pieces of gaming marketing in the last 20 years. Fast forward to July 1st, 2026, and Sony puts out a blog post announcing that from January 2028, every new PlayStation game will be digital only. No more physical discs, just downloads, or a plastic case with a bit of card inside it and a download code. It took Sony just 13 years to go from mocking Microsoft for restricting game ownership to doing something worse. At least Microsoft's plan in 2013 still had a disc in bloody box. Alright, you lot. Sony's official justification is that 85% of PlayStation software purchases in most recent quarter were digital. That's number they put in front of investors and number they want you to see. So pack it up, disc lovers. Apparently nobody wants your plastic circles anymore. Problem is, that number's complete bollocks. It's not a fabrication. It's what's included in it. See, that 85% figure counts free-to-play games, DLC, microtransactions, PS Plus titles, and it counts every single indie game and digital-only title on PlayStation Store, which so happens to make roughly 85% of the entire PlayStation library. Those games aren't available on disc. They never had a physical option, and Sony's lumping them in with games that did to inflate digital percentage. So what happens when you strip all that out and only look at games that were available on both formats? Funny you should ask, because massive Insomniac Games leak in 2023 gave us internal sales data, and it showed that 31 out of 33 PlayStation first-party titles sold more physical copies than digital. When Sony were publicly telling investors that digital purchases had hit 79% back in Q4 2020, Insomniac's internal data had first-party digital sales at just 36%. That's a 43 percentage point gap between headline number and reality for actual games that had a disc option. That's statistical manipulation dressed up as market evolution. They took a data set that included millions of transactions that had absolutely naught to do with physical media, blended them all together, and then pointed at results and said, look, nobody buys discs anymore. And Daniel Ahmad, an analyst at Nico Partners, confirmed that almost 70 million new disc-based PlayStation games were sold in 2025. So it's not a dying market at all. It's just being murdered. Now, Sony will never say this out loud, but entire move as a secondary target. And it's one that explains real motivation better than any investor slide ever could. Pre-owned market. Every time a game disc gets traded in at CEX, or sold privately, or passed to a mate, or picked up second-hand at a car boot sale, Sony gets note, publisher gets note, developer gets note, CEX or whoever sold it keeps lot. And for a company that now wants to control every single transaction between a player and the game, that's unacceptable. ERA, Entertainment Retailers Association, represents retailers like Game, HMV, Asda and Morrisons in UK, and they came out swinging on this. Their CEO, Kim Bailey, called Sony's decision, and I'm paraphrasing here, a triumph for corporate convenience of a consumer choice, and she backed it with actual data. 45% of all physical console games sold in UK in 2025 were PlayStation titles. Total UK disc-based games market were valued at over 300 million quid last year. In US, physical games generated $1.6 billion in 12 months ending May 2026. And a quarter of gamers under 25, exact demographics Sony's supposedly building its future around, still buy physical. Now, ERA aren't a consumer rights group. They're a trade body. They exist to protect retailers, so there's a self-interest angle there, and I'm not going to pretend they're in. But numbers they're citing aren't made up. They're sourced from Nielsen IQ and GfK, and those numbers paint a very different picture to one Sony's selling. Think about what happens to a business like CEX when there's no more new discs. Right now, they can take in a trade, sell it on, buy it back again, and sell it again. One disc generates multiple transactions, multiple revenue streams, and keeps games affordable for people who can't drop 70 quid on every new release. That entire model dies when disc dies, and Sony don't care, because every one of those second-hand sales is a digital sale they didn't get. It's all about eliminating a secondary market that Sony has no control over. Christopher Dring, host of Game Business Podcast, said that Sony's icon slogan used to be for the players. But with this decision, it's more like for profit margin. And that's exactly what this is. Now, this whole situation goes from frustrating to genuinely sinister. Because Sony didn't just announce death of discs on July 1st. They also announced on the same day, in exact same blog post, the PlayStation Store on PS3 and PS Vita will be shutting down. PS3 store access starts disappearing in August 2026 for some regions, and global shutdown for both PS3 and Vita hits in July 2027. Let that sink in for a second. On the same day that Sony told you digital is future, they also confirmed that digital purchases on 2 of their own platforms are about to become inaccessible. Hundreds of digital-only games, exclusive PSN releases, entire libraries of content that you paid real money for, gone. Not because games don't work anymore, or hardware failed, but because Sony's decided to switch off shop. They tried this before in 2021. They announced same PS3 and Vita store closures and got hit with such massive wave of backlash that they reversed it. This time they're doing it anyway, and they've timed it alongside disc announcements that bigger stores swallow smaller one. It's a cunning strategy. So let me lay this out in plain terms. Sony's saying trust us, digital is better, while simultaneously proving that digital has a shelf life. You're being told to stop buying things you can hold, touch, lend, sell, and keep forever, and instead buy things that Sony can revoke, delist, and switch off whenever math stops working in their favour. And they're not hiding it. It's right there, in the same blog post. And if you thought Sony's timing couldn't get any more comedic, buckle up. Because what happened last week was so perfectly on the nose that I genuinely thought I were being pranked. Friday, 24th of July, 2026. Just 23 days after Sony told the entire world that digital is future and discs are dead, PlayStation Network went down globally for 8 hours. Every single service, account management, PlayStation Store, multiplayer, gone. And here's the best bit. Digital games that people had already bought, already downloaded, already had sitting on their hard drives, couldn't be launched because they need license validation from Sony's service. Games you paid for, sitting on your console, were unplayable because Sony's servers had a bad day. And it wasn't just some minor hiccup in one region. It were global. Sony's status page said everything were fine for 3 hours while thousands of people were staring at error screens. It took them 3 hours and 19 minutes to even admit there were a problem. 8 hours to fix it. And they still hadn't told anyone what actually caused it. Oh, and it also knocked out open beta for Marvel Token Fighting Souls, which Sony had been pushing all week, and delayed Esports FC 26 Championship at Esports World Cup. So that went well. Now, if this were a one-off, you could maybe write it off as a bit of bad luck. Just unfortunate timing. But it won't. This is 7th major PSN outage in 2026. March 21st, April 15th to 16th, April 23rd, May 21st, June 21st, July 9th, and now July 24th. That's roughly one every 3 weeks. Independent Monitoring Service, ISDAN, tracked all of them, and classified 3 as never acknowledged by Sony and 1 as still not acknowledged. Sony hadn't offered compensation for a single one of them, and some of these people are paying up to 120 quid a year for PS Plus Premium. So let's get this straight. You want me to gear up physical discs and over complete control of my entire game library to your servers, and your servers can't stay online for 3 consecutive weeks? That's pitch you're going with. That's your digital future. Because last week proved exactly what every critic of this decision has been saying since July 1st. When you own a disc, you put it in and you play. No server check, no license validation, no dependency on whether Amazon Web Services is having a wobble or Sony's infrastructure team remembered to feed hamster running on wheels in data center. It just works. And when PSN goes down, which apparently is every bloody 20 days now, your disc games keep working and your digital games become expensive wallpaper. Sony spent 13 years going from you own your games to you own Note and you'll need our permission to play it. And then their own network proved them wrong within a month. You genuinely couldn't write better comedy if you tried. Petition Don't Kill Discs, started by Jade Pierce, CEO of a small Canadian retailer called PMP Games, has now crossed over 335,000 signatures. And that petition nails this point better than most media coverage has. It says you're not renting a disc, you own it. A download code in a box is not ownership. It's a revocable license in plastic packaging. And people have already had purchased films deleted from the libraries and games pulled from sale weeks after launch. It's not speculation, because it's already happened multiple times. And EU can't stop it either. Michael McGrath, EU Commissioner for Democracy, Justice, Rule of Law and Consumer Protection, already said that game companies are free to offer games in whatever format they choose as long as they comply with law. So there's no regulatory cavalry coming. And none at Backlash matters, because Sony's already spent money. Thalgo plant in Austria is Sony's largest and likely last wholly owned disc production facility. It currently stamps out 600,000 discs a day. PlayStation games account for roughly half that volume. And on July 1st, same day as announcement, 300 employees at that plant were reassigned from disc production to begin testing new equipment. Equipment that Sony had already spent €300 million on, designed to manufacture optical microlenses, little optical components used in things like car indicators that project onto tarmac, LiDAR sensors, and medical devices. By 2028, disc output at that plant drops to roughly 10% at current volume. Retooling has already started. Money's been committed. Staff are being retrained. Max Microlens production scheduled to begin next year. So it seems that this was a decision made in response to market data released last quarter. It's been planned for years. €30 million investment didn't appear overnight. Sony anticipated backlash, factored it into their projections, and decided you'd get tired before they would. They knew 335,000 people had signed a petition, that PlayStation X account would get hammered. They budgeted for bad press same way you'd budget for postage. And cherry on top is when people started cancelling their PS Plus subscription in protest, Sony's retention algorithms kicked in and started offering 50% discounts to anyone who tried to leave. 3 months of PS Plus Extra for half price. Targeted. Automated. Shameless. Sony built a generation of PlayStation loyalty on back of a 20-second video showing two blokes sharing a game disc. The one E3 2013 with a joke about ownership. They mocked Microsoft publicly for trying to restrict what you could do with things you bought. And 13 years later, they've not only done the same thing Microsoft tried, they've gone further. So all you can do now is make informed choices with your wallet, because that's only language any of these corporations actually speak. Buy physical while you still can. Support retailers who still stock it. And stop letting billion-pound companies tell you that removing your option is the same thing as progress. Now, if you like this video, YouTube says you'll like this and next. So go check that out, and I'll see you there, you magnificent.